email for the year, and they texted me back, Mutav Shiu Shagig and B'lay Metzida. So they decided that they're not coming to this year. But I told him it's too late because he knows about this year. Coffee obviously has become a part of our lives. The taste, the upgrade in taste, and consumership that we exhibit, that we've started exhibiting, is it's well a part of our lives. And gourmet coffee has become ubiquitous, and coffee is a choice that we make in many venues. We're traveling, etc. So I've been waiting for a while to have this topic comprehensively and correctly addressed. So I'm happy to have Rabbi Cohen join us. And again, we should. Rabbi Cohen is an asset in the community, in Kashrus and otherwise. So it's a cover to have Rabbi Cohen join us and to address this topic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as Rabbi said, I'm going to speak about coffee. I'm going to talk in two parts. I'm going to start with something probably you were maybe not expecting to the coffee, and then we'll move on to what you're hoping me to speak about. And that is, in Siman Kufiyah Dalet in your day, Shulchan Aruch brings a Gemara. The Gemara says that you're not allowed to drink shecher in the house of someone who's not Jewish. So the Gemara says shecher means, in modern Hebrew we translate shecher as beer. Shecher in the Gemara's terms means a certain kind of beer, date beer. Beer made out of, instead of at a bar, it's made of dates. And the Gemara says you're not allowed to drink beer in the house of someone who's not Jewish. The Shulchan Aruch brings that in Siman Kufiyah Dalet. There's a machlokes with the Rishonim of whether that applies only specifically to date beer or to all types of beer. Any beer made of any kind of thing, like the kind of beer that we drink. And Shulchan Aruch is a machmir on that shayla, and says you can't drink any of those things. So someone who's Sephardi can't go to a bar, can't drink at a non-Jewish place, possibly can't even drink at a stadium, drink a beer. The Rama says we're only not going to say that a person can't drink shecher tomorrow, but the Gemara's specific case was, which was shecher tomorrow, date beer, which for us means effectively nothing, because how many of us ever Kashrus or this is not a Kashrus issue. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be clear about that. I'm sorry. It's not a Kashrus issue. It's not because there might be some truth in it. I'm sorry, taking it down that. It's because of Kashrus. Because drinking these kind of things, drinking alcoholic beverages together with Goyim, only leads to problems, leads to Kashrus, to intermarriage, and therefore, Chazal said you shouldn't do it. Therefore, the Gemara says you shouldn't do it, and but the Rama says it's only for shecher tomorrow, which is basically means there's nothing about it. That's why probably most people have never even heard of this thing, because how many of us ever thought about drinking shecher tomorrow? So if you're Sephardi, you should know about this thing. But for Ashkenazim, most of us have never heard of this. Now, there's a second machlokes within that thing, and that is within the shita that holds it's for all types of beer. What happens for non-alcoholic beverages? Is the Gemara only talking about alcoholic beverages or even non-alcoholic beverages? That's also a machlokes we're talking about that thing. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't tell us what he thinks about that. The Chacham says, he says, the din is like drama. The din is like drama that everything is mutter except for shecher. So basically, this din doesn't make such a difference. He says, but, when this din came about, when this din was created, that you shouldn't drink shecher in a non-Jew's home or in a store, he says, there was a logic to it. Everybody understands that drinking in a bar leads to camaraderie and all kinds of relationships that are inappropriate. Okay? We don't want people mingling with God in that way. He says, and therefore, even though technically it only applies to shecher tomorrow, he says the truth is that you should be careful about other things as well. He says, and then nowadays, the Chacham lived in the late 1700s. Okay? The early 1700s had become a fad. We have now Starbucks, coffee stores. They have hot chocolate stores. Okay? That was a place that people hung out in hot chocolate. So he says, even though he says, min hadin, the din is that you could drink everything except for shecher tomorrow. He says, but upon that, for someone who's more careful, should be avoid those kind of things. The thing, coffee with chocolate. Chocolate here doesn't mean like bars of chocolate, it means hot chocolate. And those times, that's what people drink. more delicious than Esakim. You're really allowed to drink it if you're in at the home of someone who's not Jewish from the store. All kinds of problems have happened, and realistically, you look around and see what has happened, and therefore a person should be careful. Okay, so for us, we feel the same caution. Sitting in Starbucks is not just a place where you get a drink and people walk out. People hang out in Starbucks. It's a place that people hang and they stay there, and they interact with people there. So in our interactions with people who are not Jewish, we have to be careful and say, Kosher says, be careful and make sure that doesn't go over the line. Okay, be careful about what you do and how you interact in those conversations. Okay.
The concept of takeout different? Or
yes. So now, technically, actually, in the case of Shecher tomorrow, the Gemara's case, you're actually not allowed to take it out either. The thing by Shecher tomorrow is you're not allowed to eat it out of the store until you get home, till you actually get to your house. So, but I don't think Kosher doesn't mean to say that we should treat coffee exactly like we do in Shecher tomorrow. He just means this. Using our mind, we realize that this is not a place where we should be hanging out. Or we should do it with caution and realize what we're doing. He didn't mean the technicalities of it. That Shecher Torah actually can't eat outside the store. He didn't mean it.
So it's not enough to mean what the product is. It's the
venue.
It's
and right, which is people go to Starbucks. It's true. People go to Starbucks and drink orange juice. It's true that people do that, but basically in Starbucks people sit and drink coffee. That's what they do. So that concept, again, and chocolate also. I mean, we don't have really hot chocolate in the stores now, but okay. I guess in Starbucks you can drink hot.
So you're referring specifically because it's a makom of goyim.
Yes, right. It doesn't do. The technical bit has to do with who owns it. Technically, it has to do with who owns the store. But when the Chacham is saying, be careful about who you interact with, he doesn't care who the technical owner is, that Howard Schultz happens to be Jewish. That doesn't mean anything. He's thinking about the fact that who you're interacting with in the store. Who's there, who you're sitting with. So if I sit with you,
The same thing can apply if non-Jewish people come to a kosher restaurant.
100%. The thing the Gemara talks about drinks and drinking together with people. Okay, now to the part you probably expect me to speak about. Okay, the practice issues at Starbucks. Okay, so let's think about it like this. Way back when Starbucks started, it was a coffee store. Okay, and we all know that there's lots more going on in Starbucks more than just coffee at this point. Okay, so the questions we're going to have is, well, before I move on, there are some Starbucks stores that basically just still sell coffee. Okay, and we call those, seriously, I don't know if that's an official name, we call them kiosk stores. Okay, the little places that, like in an airport, that selling Starbucks, they sell coffee and a little bit more than that, but it's basically within the range of coffee type items. Okay, and then there are the full stores, like the one that's on Tuesday. There's the full stores. Okay, those stores sell all types of things. Okay, the worst part for our purposes is they sell hot tray sandwiches. Okay, if there's only tray sandwiches that were cold, we'd be okay. In the airport, you could probably get a cold sandwich also. But if they sell hot sandwiches, that's what causes the problem. Okay? So before we think about the hot sandwiches, I need to tell you the problem.
But they serve hot.
Hot sandwiches, yes. They serve them hot. The sandwiches come out of a fridge and they heat them up on the plate. How do you do in a second?
It's all pre-packaged.
Yes. Now, I'm going to explain to you in a second. Give me a second. Even in the kiosk stores, there are some things that the ingredients are not kosher, but we don't know if they're kosher. Okay, like the frappuccinos and the lemonade and some of the flavored tea and coffee items. You have to just be careful. Some of those things we don't even know if they have a hefsher at all. So for a time we knew the frappuccinos were okay. Starbucks had some arrangement with Starbucks, but now we don't know. So you can't buy the frappuccino just because you don't know if the ingredients are kosher. Okay, those are more obvious. Okay, I didn't print the copies everybody. I haven't. You've seen this. Seriously has a box or a list that tells you which things are or not okay. Okay, now the sandwiches go like this. When a person orders a sandwich or a pastry at Starbucks, okay, we wouldn't do that because of course those don't have our stuff on them.
Now they have some of the hashkafa just on the side. The one that's free at the time, they now have CRC and COR.
Right, those are packaged and you can just buy them and it's grab and go. You buy it and walk out the store. But the regular and the full stores, what they're doing is those people are getting those sandwiches hot. So we do it like this. Okay? Bear with my samples over here. Okay? Now my kids are too big, so I don't have sandwiches at home. Okay, plastic sandwiches. Okay? They take a tray, and they have an oven, okay, which is a mix between a regular oven and a microwave kind of an oven. Okay? And they stick into that oven, there's a tray that's in there, a ceramic tray, this is plastic, but that's a ceramic tray, okay, and on it they put the sandwich right onto it and stick it to the oven for a couple of minutes to warm up the person's sandwich. Then the sandwich comes out, when it comes out, or the cake comes out, it goes onto a plate, goes onto a plate, and they serve it to the person. Okay? So that's all of a sudden we now spread the tray, potentially spread that tray from the sandwich. The sandwich itself is obviously tray, it's meat or cheese or whatever it is. That could potentially have spread to the rest of the store. And let's think about how it could possibly spread. If and how it could possibly spread. Okay. I'm going to tell you two dinim in Hilchos Tarugas that you need to know in order to understand if and how Tam spreads. Okay? I'm going to tell you two dinim. Okay, before I tell you these two dinim, I need to give you 4 introductions. Okay? The first is, this idea that we have a problem of Tam spreading is only in the full-service stores. The kiosk stores don't have this. They don't heat up sandwiches. Okay? They have trays, but they have frappuccinos, but this Tam doesn't spread. It just is to what it is. It doesn't spread around. In the hot sandwiches, we potentially are spreading Tam around the stores. Second is, I'm going to tell you ideas of how Tam spreads back and forth. I'm going with the assumption, the way many people who are not Hasidic, which is that I personally don't eat chol stam. It might be we only call Israel, but we would eat things made of chol stam cakes. Okay, it's a rule that Henkin said and others have said as well that we don't care about chol stam kalim, which is to say is many Hasidim are not even a chol stam kalim. Okay? They might not look at what I'm about to say. The rest of what I'm going to say the same way as I do. Okay? In my mind, the fact that they're doing things with milk. Okay, I might not eat that milk because the milk is chol stam, but I wouldn't worry about the kalim that those are in. Okay, again, the Hasidic people who take a different look at view that. The Litvish people tend to look at it, not worry about the kalim. Okay, number 3. If something is flavored, let's say some of their teas are flavored. I was at a Starbucks, I don't know, a month ago, and they had a bunch of different teas. Some of them were flavored, all of them were flavored, and some of them had hashgacha, some of them didn't. Okay? So the general rule is that we won't eat something with a flavor unless it's hashgacha, but we won't worry about how that affects kalim. If the only thing that's sensitive about that is the flavor in it, we don't worry about how that affects kalim. Okay, why that's true is not for today. Okay, we can talk about that. That you have to accept that assumption that just because if there's a flavor in there, I won't eat it without hashgacha, but it's not going to affect my kalim.
How's the flavor of the sandwich with the coffee?
I'm going to get that. I'm about to explain that. I'm giving you instruction. I'm not for you. I'm about to explain how the course gets to. But when I say I'm flavored, I mean it's like flavored. Okay? And the last thing is, before we talk about if and how the Tam can spread, I have to say the following. This one I'm about to say to you, I heard it from Schwartz here at the CRC. They tell me Rabowski said the same thing at OU, and that is the following. He said this. Whether something is mutter usher technically, whether it's mutter usher, which I'm going to talk to you about, is it technically mutter usher? That's an appropriate discussion, and that's even appropriate for the Rav L'Shul to tell you. You go to your Rav and say, Rabbi, can I eat this? Can I not eat this? And I'll tell you mutter usher. He says, but when hashgachas tell people things, okay, I work for the CRC, today's a work day, so I'm working for the CRC on a hashgacha needs to take a different stand. The people come to hashgacha expecting that when they say something is kosher, they mean it's completely kosher. There's no questions to that thing. So if I say to you it's okay, you're saying, oh, if the oven said it's okay, then it's okay. And they have a different understanding when it comes to Rabbi Shimon. But I'm driving, I need a coffee on my way to work. Can I get it? They're getting a different kind of answer from a mutter usher rather than from us without a shayla. So what I'm going to talk to you now is whether technically, I'm going to tell you that certain things are technically might be mutter. Okay, but as a hashgacha, that's we don't recommend it. If you look at our list, you'll see don't eat this thing, don't eat this thing, because as a hashgacha, that's not appropriate to say all these things are okay. Okay, we're now talking more rabbinically to say that it technically is it mutter usher. Okay. Okay. Now, 2 rules, and that's 7 rules you need to know. You may know these already, and the first is like this: in order for tam, tray flavor, to spread from one thing to another, we need heat. Okay? But we need more than just heat. We need heat in the kli rishon. Kli rishon means is that if I cook food up in a pot, if I heat up something in a pot, that's a kli rishon. The kli rishon, the first thing, the kli that was cooked in. If something is hot in the kli rishon, tam can spread from one part to the other, from the food into the kli, from the kli into the food, and like that. What happens if we leave the kli rishon? We go into what's called irur kli rishon, we pour it out of the kli rishon. Then there's very little transfer of time. A very small amount transfers. Not very much, just a little bit transfers. What happens if we get to a kli sheni? Mean is, if this was the kli rishon, okay, if this was the kli rishon, this is not a good example. If it had been cooked in here, this would be the kli rishon. If I pour from here into a cup, then the spot on the cup where it hits is iru kli rishon. The rest of the cup is called the kli sheni, the second cup. There, l'chapili you shouldn't do it, but the diavad there's no time. The diavad time does not transfer. Okay, so we have three different kinds of kin. We have kli rishon. If something cooks on the fire with something, time transfers. If it pours from that kli, if you pour from there, there's a little bit of transfer. And the kli sheni, you shouldn't do it, but the diavad it's okay. Okay, that's our first rule. So that means is when we're thinking about whether tracing it from the sandwich into my coffee, we have to think about, we're really looking for a kli rishon. Is there a kli rishon that can help the time transfer? Okay? If it's an iru kli rishon, there's a little problem, but once it past that, we're safe. Okay, the second rule is really an exception to the first rule, and that is, when we say that when something goes from a kli rishon, once it leaves the kli rishon, doesn't transfer time anymore, that's for liquids. Many are mashma when we have something called a davar gush, a solid item. We have something that's solid, it retains its heat even when it leaves the kli rishon, and even if it's not in the kli rishon, it can transfer time anyhow. Okay? So, for example, what I said to you beforehand, we put our sandwich on the tray into the oven. Okay? So this tray is a kli rishon. Okay? This tray that's in the oven is a kli rishon. So the tray sandwich gives time into this tray as a kli rishon because it's in the oven cooking this in together. That's a kli rishon. When I take that piece of meat off and I try to put it onto a plate, okay, now that should be a kli sheni. Okay, but since the sandwich is a solid item, it's not a liquid, it's a solid item, it's a davar gush, so we say that there's a bleed into this kli as if it was a kli rishon.
What is the plate made out of? That is
ceramic.
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 Ceramic is...
Has bleach, does it absorbs. Okay, so
Would it be a difference if it was different?
So it's a glass.
If it's glass or...
if it was glass, then there would be more reason to be made. Ashkenazim are that glass has bleach, but we much more reason to be made. But it's not. It's ceramic. This is ceramic, and this is china, which is essentially ceramic also. Okay, this one actually is glass, but in the store this is ceramic. Okay, in the store this is a piece of china. Okay, so there's bleed into this tray because this tray goes into the oven with a piece of meat on it. There's bleed into this plate because the davar gush, the hot item, comes out of the tray and goes onto here, and so this becomes tray also. Okay,
Are all solids equal, like bread versus like a piece of cheese or meat?
yes, and anything that if you it doesn't pour, isn't it solid enough that it doesn't pour out? It's considered solid enough to hold on to its heat. The point is it retains its heat. As opposed to a liquid, you pour soup, it starts to cool off much quicker than a piece of meat. It cools off quickly. Okay, now, so that's how the tray and the plate became trade. Okay, but we're not eating the tray or the plate. Okay, we're not going to buy any beverages that will come on that tray or that plate. The tray is what works in the oven, and we never see that. And the plate is for eating hot sandwiches. Okay, or for hot pastries. You can even eat a cold thing on there also. We don't about believers in cold things. So the fact that their tray is trade, okay, not good for whoever wants to eat on that, but that's not yet our problem. The question is, could that get to our cooking? Could that get to the drink that I want to have, to my latte? Can I get time from it into my thing? Okay? So there's one other place in the store where there's a cleavation. One other place besides in the oven that's a cleavation. Anybody want to guess? No. Try again. What? No. Try again.
That's a question.
Prove asking for coffee.
No. I'll explain to you all those things. Those are none of the cleavation. Okay. The only that's a cleavation is the wand on the espresso machine. Okay? And that is to say is, there's a wand. We take a cup. Okay? I got a wand here someplace. Okay? You take a cup and you stick it under. Okay? And in sticks a wand. Okay? And through this steam comes pouring through. Okay? So that means the steam is a heat source. It's like a fire. Okay? So when you stick the wand into your cup, that cup is being cooked in a cleavation. Okay? That cup, whatever's happening in there, that's a cleavation over there. That's happening we actually cooked on there. There's just two sides to the espresso machine, but basically they're both doing the same thing. They both have a wand in them that heats up the clay. And in that clay we're cooking food in the cleavation. So here's another place where time can transfer in the regular traditional way. Okay? But now, think about this. That wand,
Is the clearation or
the cup that's in it, the cup that's in it it's as if the pot on the fire. This is the fire, and usually the fire is underneath, but in this case it's
How does the
backwards.
wand work? How does the wand work? The wand is, how does the wand?
Steam comes pouring through the wand.
The wand, I mean, it's not movable.
No, you stick the cup underneath it.
in the mill?
Yes.
Yes.
the machine?
The milk frother.
Right.
But milk is not straight.
I'm saying.
Okay.
So you have a machine, you have a wand that is transferring the steam to the cup.
So we treat the steam as it's the fire. That's a heat source. It's not hot from something else. It is the heat source, and it's heat. So now the cup that they're making, now they're not using, they actually sometimes use disposables. You can get them, but they also use a real cup, a metal cup in there, and that cup that's in there is whatever's in there is being cooked in the cleavage.
But what's in there that's a problem?
I didn't say the problem yet. I just try to find it with the cleavage. The problem I'm trying to say is we have to think about where concentrate. So we have on the one hand we have these pieces became trays where they are. Okay, this is not my problem. I'm not eating these foods. And this could be concentrated on this part of the store. And the question is there any bridge between them? Is there any way Tom to get from here into here? Okay? If it doesn't get from here to here, I'm pretty safe. I'm not 100% safe, but I'm pretty safe unless Tom gets from here to here. Okay? Now, we can't see any place where Tom goes from here to here. No one ever puts a sandwich into the espresso machine. Right? It doesn't work like that. You don't stick sandwiches into there. Right? They all put the other chazar goes into there, but not chazar. Okay? We don't put the sandwiches in there. Okay, so now,
Other question of liquid.
into that machine?
Into the steam. Yeah, you don't know it's flavor or something. And
So, one of my instructions, or I forgot what number it was, that when something is just flavored, if it's only trying to put the flavor, I'm not going to give out the kilm of it. I won't drink it, but I don't give out the kilm of it. Okay, so my tray is my sandwiches. The tray that I care about is my sandwiches. Now, okay, so now, people mention, when I say, does anybody know for Clevetion, we had a bunch of choices over here. Okay, now, if we think about those choices that you mentioned, you're going to realize that the most those are is irreclusion. Sometimes it's a cliche, but it's usually just irreclusion. Okay, let's go through that. Okay, the most basic thing in the store is the brew basket. Okay, so this is the shul's actual brew basket. Okay, and all brew baskets are by and large the same.
We actually have the same machine at Starbucks.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
So we have a,
don't mess around here.
okay. Has a brew basket. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see what's going on here. We have this, I don't know what you call this piece. This is like a bucket on the bottom. Okay, and then it goes to this metal frame. Okay, the metal frame sticks into there. On top of which we put a filter, and then the coffee grinds. Okay, so now there's no heat in this. Where's heat coming from? From hot water. And the hot water pours through this. Okay, so now.
What temperature?
Boiling hot. Boiling hot. It's boiling hot. That makes difference.
It's not 12.
It doesn't put boiling hot. It doesn't make difference. It's hot enough. Hot enough to make bouillon. But
190, you're going to get 202.
But do we? Is this
machine does to it.
It can't be a cleavation because there's no heat source over here. This is obviously not a cleavation. The most it can be is irrecleavation. You can pour from a cleavation. So you say, okay, well, we're pouring from a cleavation. Okay, well, the rule is it's only considered to be pouring from a cleavation on the first thing that the hot water hits. Okay, what's the first thing that the hot water hits? Grind. And then it has a filter, okay? Now, some of it hits the frame, but very short. I mean, it's headed to the middle. The hole's in the middle. That's what it's headed to. But even if it ever got to this brew basket, that's a cliche. Okay, when it gets to this brew basket, it's already, the first thing it hit to was the grind, and there's a filter. Okay, and there's a filter also. So, in order to make the bleed in this thing, this is not the way to run a kosher kitchen. You wouldn't say, wait a second, let's have a tray brew basket and make coffee out of it. If you try that at home, your wife will throw you out of the house. Okay? You shouldn't try to do it. So, that means there's a shiloh to this thing. But, does that mean, could it fit together? Could it make the coffee tray? No, even if the brew basket is tray, we haven't figured out if the brew basket is tray, but even were the brew basket to be tray, how could the brew basket give Tom back into my drink? Okay, seemingly, again, with Hapili knowledge to do it, but for the evidence, no, seemingly it cannot make my food drink.
If there's tubing between the reservoir where the water is heated and the brew basket, would that make complete trainings?
That's a question. There's a talk about that. Probably not. Okay, the water keeps on flowing for a long time through that, it probably doesn't. Okay, but in this part, it just trickles through. Okay, it just comes trickling through. Okay.
Why is it any different than the ladle in the soup? If you leave it in the soup, it loses its cliche status.
Correct.
That is being poured on for like 2 or 3 minutes. It loses its status of cliche.
So the only time we say that something gets so hot that it loses its status of cliche is when it. I'm going to back up a second. What's the difference between a kli rishon and a kli sheni? So Kashrus says the difference is that a kli sheni is so hot, that the kli rishon is so hot that it retains and adds heat. As opposed to a kli sheni, it's constantly cooling off. So in this kli, if you pour water through, there's such a thing. If you put a ladle in, it gets so hot that it's basically like. But in this, put grinds in here and then run water through for 5 minutes. This is not so hot. I don't mean it's not hot. I mean you're not going to burn yourself. But it's not to the point you
It's touching has it been of that ladle sitting in the kli rishon.
No, because it's constantly cooling itself off also. There's only that much water. There's only that much water pouring into here.
It's constantly receiving water.
It outside is cool off. I don't see that. That's
It's not submerged in a kli rishon.
okay.
Okay, it's not submerging. The law is that it has to be that it's constantly getting the heat from the kli rishon. That's where the ladle retains the status.
Okay.
The ladle's in the kli rishon.
No, the ladle is surrounded at all times, not just being poured on. So it becomes,
Okay, I didn't tell you why the basket is straight yet. I didn't say that why the basket is straight. Even if the basket is straight, to get that time into my coffee, we haven't figured out how to get that time into my coffee. Let it even have been straight. I said I didn't say this. Okay? So where else do we have heat in the store? Okay, that other people mentioned. Okay, we have a dishwasher or a sink. Okay, now I hear there may be changes in the stores that maybe I'm wrong about this, but the way I understood, the way the store works is, when they have dirty dishes, they wash them first in the sink. It's called a 3-compartment sink because there's 3 compartments. Okay, in the 3-compartment sink. Okay, first it soaks, and then they wash, and then they rinse. Okay, the 3 parts to the sink. Okay, now, then my understanding is after that it goes into the dish, what we would call a dishwasher. Okay, but not dishwasher as in something to clean dishes, but something to sanitize dishes. Okay, sanitize clean dishes. Now, what's the din of the sink? What's the din of this sink? We have a sink, and into the sink we dump all kinds of things. So let's say into the sink they put in my tray. Okay, the tray could go to the sink. Not necessarily. Let's say it goes to the sink and my fruit basket. Okay, they put both of these in. Oh, better yet. Okay, let's do this one. Okay, difference is they put the cup. Okay, they put both of these in. They put both of these into the sink together. Okay, so they're both in the sink together. Now we at least have a possibility of time transferring from this is tray. And this is going to hold my tray. Okay, this is going to go under. This is going to go into the wand. This is going to hold my tray. And this is going to be in another kli rishon. So we have a chance here for time to transfer. What is it possible for time to transfer in that sink? So what happens in the sink? What happens in the sink? Without a kli rishon, we don't cook up water in a sink. It's a sink. We pour water into a sink. Okay, so when we pour water into a sink, we're talking about kli rishon. We're pouring water from the heat source, from the original pot, from a hot water heater, into the sink. So what happens when we do kli rishon? We do kli rishon, we can get a bliya at the spot where it hits.
the water that brings us heat is that hot.
It shouldn't be more than 130.
It depends on the
More than
store.
130. What's the number?
It depends on the store. It usually isolates.
That's what's going on.
How could
Even
it?
at 130.
So it's a question. It depends on what it is. It depends on how strong their hands are. And there's one that they just soak in. The first thing is just for soaking in it. They don't have to put their hands into that. It depends on what they're doing. Well, then there's a second thing. No, it just sits there.
How do they get the stuff out of that?
Because it cools off. And then they move it to the second thing. Okay? Or they run cold water on top of it. So everybody who washes things uses the 3 compartments. Like the health department requirement. That's what you have to do. Everybody washes 3 compartments. So
Where's the earring?
So the earring, when we have earring here in the sink is if we pour hot water comes out of the faucet. If the hot water comes out of the faucet and it hits this kosher cup and this tray at the same time. It only the spot where it hits at the same time.
They're sitting next to each other. They're touching each other. Where the water hits.
Where the water hits, that's one way. Or, in theory, if a piece of food is still left on the tray, the piece of food could the piece of food could fall into my cup also. Okay? In other words, it could be that the tray, when the tray and the cup are in at the same time, that means there's pieces of meat floating around in there also. So it could be there's a piece of meat on my cup also. Okay? It is possible, not just that the tray and the cup get hit with water at the same time, but a piece of floating food is sitting in my cup also. So it could be either into the cup or into the brew basket or something where the water hits the cup, let's say, and the food all at the same time. Okay?
But we're still not sure that that water is hot enough for even Yatzalel.
We're assuming that it's got. We're assuming that
It's an assumption.
Erie might not be. That's the
We're working with an assumption.
Yatzalel.
We're working with an assumption. But let's think a second. But let's just think a second. So it is possible that there's irretribution. It is possible that in the three compartment sink, and we'll do the dish machine in a second, that there might be irretribution.
The cup itself will not become an actual clearation, though.
No.
You can't clean it.
No. But the question is, if we make the cup tray, we're going to then put this cup into a wand, and it's going to be clean.
But how treif is the cup? Is it a clearation treif?
So,
it's
treif as irretribution. That's what I'm headed to, is the treif that
We get euros in a basin of water.
in a basin.
You have a basin of water that works in 130 degree temperature. So it's already a clean change.
Right,
Does that come out of the heating source?
You're correct. In most cases, what's in the sink is a clean change.
At best,
You could find in most cases, the sink is a cliche because once the water hits the first thing, it's a cliche. But it's possible to have an irretribution. The worst case scenario
You have the piece of meat in the cup under the faucet.
That's correct. Okay, I didn't say it's likely to happen, but that's the worst thing. How are we going to cliche is at the end of nothing. I won't worry about irretribution. So irretribution. So now, if I had worst case scenario, I had irretribution. Let's remember, I said to you, irretribution makes a very small bleed into the cup. Okay, so that means is now I have this cup that we transfer time out of the tray into this metal cup. Okay, and now this metal cup has a small bleed into it. Now when I go put this under the wand and there's a cleavation, that small bleed can come out. Okay, that small bleed likely is not going to make a tray. That's an assumption that when something only tray that little, it can't make the next food tray b'diavad. Okay, so b'diavad, we could get the cup to be a little tray. That's the worst we get, to be a little tray. Okay, a little tray is going to b'diavad not make my drink tray. Rega. So back to what I said a few minutes ago, which is this something that has no silence to it? No, it has silence to it. Now, I just showed you a path of how it can become trade. That means there's a silence. That means that you have to listen to me talk for half an hour, or you have to go to the rabbi and say, Rabbi, can I drink this? So I can say there's no silence. But is it the technicalities of it? The technicalities of it, yes, it would be worth it to drink it. Okay? So for example...
Why is it worth it to drink? Is it
because the worst case scenario was that there was a drop of time in this metal, and that tiny amount of cup would be bottled. That tiny amount would be bottled to the drink that I'm going to have. Okay, so
it could be this trait. Maybe.
And when the hot water hits at the same time, you would make the very small amount of so the small amount of clear will then be bottled into my drink.
This is
you don't say that's all.
What do you want to know?
So to answer your question, Rega. So to answer this question, and everybody's mumbling, and the following. There are many reasons to say that the technicalities of its mutter. You could call it we could say it's far-fetched. We could say it's buffalo. We have lots of explanations here for why the technicalities of our big mutter. So my point here is, if you go to the rabbi and say, Rabbi, can I drink it? The rabbi's going to possibly, likely, say to you is, it's okay to drink it. And the Star K had a nuanced way of answering this question. They say you shouldn't drink it. If you're feeling desperate, you really need it, then in that case we think it's okay. What I'm saying is, so you have to turn to Rabbi and say, Rabbi, what should I do? Okay, but with the CRC has to say to you, listen, if you want to have it without a shiloh, I'll tell you what to do in a second, how to get one without a shiloh at all. I'll tell you how to get one without any kind of a shiloh. But these ones do have a certain amount of shiloh to them. But again, if we follow the shiloh through, we say, to get the top from that treif sandwich into my coffee is really hard for that to happen. Okay? We're really hard to put together something that would say this would be treif b'diavad. Okay? So We had a dishwashing machine. In a dishwasher, some people say, well, that's a cleavation. And it's true that there's a part of a dishwasher or a sanitizer that's a cleavation. Okay, if you go home and you have a dishwasher, you'll see that in the bottom of it there's like a reservoir, okay, and water fills up over there, and there's a heating element there. And in that product, of course, is a cleavation. That right over there, water is being heated up, and there's a pool on the bottom that holds a few gallons of water, and the water gets heated up. That's a cleavation. Okay, but my dishes don't get dumped into there. My dishes don't go into the cleavation. The water gets sprayed around from there through the arms on top and the bottom. It sprays all around to hit my dishes. Does any food product get into that pool of water? So in your home dishwasher, at home, food does get into there because you put dirty dishes into there. So as you spray the dishes, the food is falling down there. So a piece of meat is being cooked in that cleavation on the bottom, and then it's being spritz onto my food. Yes. But depending on the store, my understanding is that if it's just a sanitizer, we're talking about a sanitizer, it means we put clean dishes into there. We don't put dirty dishes into there. There's no food in there. Okay? If they actually had a dishwasher that they put dirty dishes into it, then we would have back to our question of Eruv. We wouldn't yet have a cleavation, we'd have a question of Eruv. And if it went for a very long time, that someone had mentioned here, maybe it went for a very long time to get to being a cleavation. Okay? But when they use it as a sanitizer, it's a very short cycle. It's a couple of minutes.
Because it has the
soap. I didn't talk at all about the soap child. There's a question about soap. A little too complicated.
say that, no?
Hold on, it's a little too complicated for today.
So we're assuming that
I'm ignoring the soap for now. Okay? I'm ignoring the soap. Okay. It's too complicated. We'll ignore soap for now. Okay, let me see if there's anything else that I missed. Any other can that I missed.
What's it? Right. But even if it's only going on something that they're putting on the wine. You get a regular cup of stuff and they put it on, and they go to the
right, so now, if you get a regular coffee, I'm just getting a plain coffee. So then, if the brew basket, we started a few minutes ago, if the brew basket is traced, even if the brew basket is straight, there's no cleavation here.
I know it's a question.
Even if this was straight because it went through the three quarters and it became even a little straight, it was horribly straight, okay? But they dumped it into China, okay? Then even so I couldn't get the out of it. Kosher here, where it didn't become really straight, really, it only got nothing. It's only like nothing.
I coffee also.
So you can just wrap it up. I have to tell you, on our list, on the CRC's list, for plain coffee, so on a number of things the CRC says we can't recommend them, and the baby needs full service because of these can issues. And for the plain coffee, and maybe one of the other things it says look on the bottom, it has like a letter or something, and it says, well, really min hadin, I'm paraphrasing what it says, really min hadin, these are mutter, but we can't, they're not without child. They do have a child to it. It has a child, it does have a child to it, so it says dishwashing.
No.
Because it's not just a dishwasher, it's not that it could have become tray from the dishwasher, it's that even if it was tray from the dishwasher, how could that time get back into my coffee? The brew basket has two problems. First of all, did it become draped in the sink? And second, even if it was draped, could that time get into my coffee? It's different than something that I make when something that goes onto the wand. How it gets into my coffee?
You look at
it says, we can't tell you something to eat without a shot that has no child. But other ones that don't eat it at all.
Where is the shot? Right. You're saying that it can't get into it can't get into the coffee.
Okay, it's like this. We call it a shiloh because I had to talk for half an hour to explain to you why Tom doesn't transfer back and forth.
Okay,
but
that's why.
Right.
No matter what, there isn't going to be any Tom in that coffee. So then where's the shiloh that they're telling you that you shouldn't?
So that's definitely a way to look at it. I'm not going to argue this. Definitely a way to look at it. And when I leave, after I leave, I go.
CRC has meetings. Do they drink Starbucks coffee?
Yes, but when I walk out the door, you say, okay, Rabbi, now that he left, okay, now he had to say whatever he had to say, tell us what we should drink. And then the Rabbi could do it.
Don't talk about this.
Okay, so the Rabbi is off till I go to the kitchen. Comes back. It'll be much harder to say what's going on.
I don't understand what the CRC shiloh is, but they're telling me.
So the shiloh thing is that this thing has some contact with drink.
It's ashkaf. It's ashkaf. The ashkaf. They get paskin for you. The ashkaf is not going to paskin for you. At the end of the day, there is a possibility of typhus in the store.
And even the regular American.
They're saying it's impossible.
What about the cups? What if the cups? Let's say worst case scenario. Let's say those cups were lined with a ham sandwich, and there was Erie in the sink. And that,
you get your cup with disposable. The cup, when I took that cup, they heat up beverages in metal cups in the store. When you walk out the door, when you get a plain coffee, they give you a paper cup.
so let's say the one.
If you get a plain coffee, you're not using the one. The one is for foam beverages.
So let's say people drink some beverages.
So he's talking about just plain coffee. One coffee,
And that basket is completely trained, and you know it's completely trained.
right.
Right? And you're still, then the coffee comes out of there is no Shiloh.
Right. So the plain coffee is one question, and if the one gets more complicated.
Can you get talking about that line?
Yes, plain coffee. The one, the only thing that are frothed up.
So cappuccinos, espressos.
Right. Now,
Plain coffee, you just established plain coffee for a second. Unless you're traveling to the McDonald's rest stop.
Yes.
Those are correct. McDonald's
okay,
rest stop.
so it's a good question. It's a good question. Okay, it's a good question. And his question was, well, I'll keep talking about Starbucks. What about something else? If I just happen to pass the rest stop, in this case it was McDonald's. Okay, it was something else. Okay, so the answer is like this. Depending on the store will depend on how trade things can become. Okay, I described to you how things can become trade in the Starbucks. How they can become trade in McDonald's is a different question. We have to know what's going on in that store. But the end part of it, which is, let's say the brew basket is trade. Okay, trade this could be. Okay, we don't know what they did in McDonald's. Okay, if trade this could be, how can we count the back of my coffee? That's the same. Everybody's machine looks basically the same. Even the good have the same machine. Everyone's got the same machine. Okay, give or take, the machine looks always the same. Okay, so this could be very true. In another place, maybe they dunk it into chicken soup. That's how they clean it up. They dunk it into chicken soup. Okay, because really change on the fire. Okay, but the way the tongue gets out of it is the same. Everybody makes coffee in the same way. It drips through and comes on the bottom and take it up with it. Okay, now, someone mentioned here, which I was going to end with, which is, there is something you could do if you want plain coffee and you want to avoid China. Now, some people here think we don't have any China even in this case, but you want even avoid those China. And that is, they make something called an Americano. Okay? What's an Americano? An Americano is that in the rest of the world, they have a beverage called espresso. Espresso is, take coffee beans, instead of dripping water through it to get flavor out into a whole cup, they put pressurized water through it so that all the flavor comes out into a shot glass. Okay, so it's a full cup of coffee, all the flavor of a full cup of coffee in a shot glass. Okay, it's concentrated flavor. So an espresso is, think of the word express. Okay, it's concentrated coffee. Okay, so it's a whole cup of coffee in a shot glass. Now, Americans are not used to drinking that, so Americans only to drink espressos. I'm not saying nobody, but that's not so popular. So they made up this thing. Okay? It's an insult to us. Okay? It's called an Americano. Okay? This is an American espresso. What they do is they take an espresso and they pour it into a cup of hot water. So they take the espresso, the concentrated coffee, and they pour it into a full cup. So now you have your full cup of coffee, but you came from an espresso. So you feel like you're eating an espresso, but they're really making fun of you, and they're saying you dumb American who's drinking an espresso in a full cup. So hey, drink coffee. Right. You just have a regular cup of coffee. So instead of an espresso in there comes coffee.
Diluted espresso.
So that's called an Americano. Now, the advantage of the Americano is that the machine, the espresso machine, the machine that makes these concentrated shot glasses of coffee, that machine never gets washed with anything else. Okay? It doesn't get taken apart. They throw something into it that cleans it internally. Okay? It doesn't get taken apart and put into the 3-compartment sink or into the dishwasher, meaning it never gets anywhere near the tray sandwich.
What about the shot glass?
So you can get that in a paper cup. You could take I want you to make me an Americano, and actually, I don't even know if they use actual shot glasses anymore. They actually use disposables. But say, make my Americano, and the espresso part of it, put into my disposable cup. So basically what they're going to do is, they're going to go over to the espresso machine, put it in an espresso machine cup, then fill up the rest with hot water, and you can have your same cup of coffee, called an Americano instead of a cup of coffee, but it's the same thing. You're getting a cup of coffee, and you avoided this brew basket. So if you wanted to, avoid...
They have a hot water spigot. They have a hot water spigot that they
just a plain hot water spigot.
And that they don't use.
No, the hot water just a side thing.
They don't make it as an ingredient for any trade They don't
No,
put it
just for
away.
hot water. That's what it's for. It's like this. They make it. If you want to make
No,
it
for soups or whatever.
Let's say you show up in the store at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, okay, and you want a decaf. Okay, well, they don't have decaf at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Nobody walks in and asks for decaf. So they have to make it with hot water. They just pour hot water over a coffee grind and a little
Don't they have E-Rate
device.
coming up? If you take a tray of soup, put it on there, how
Steam. So, right. So it's really hard to imagine how that would happen in the store trade. Could it be that a guy walked up in the restaurant and said, "Can you put my soup under your thing?" and he had shrimp in it? I guess it could be. It's really far-fetched to get trade into the back of a Starbucks store. I'd gone to the store and asked for hot water because my kid had soup. But I said, "Can I buy a cup of hot water?"
Right.
That they should take my soup and put it in the back of the thing. But I bought hot water. I said, "Can I have a cup of hot water so I can just pour it in my soup?" But the other one, I don't know if they do.
There's over machines.
You don't get it.
Machines should be very similar to the espresso machine, that they never take it apart and wash it themselves.
The cold machine may go into the sink. The whole thing.
The Clover machine is a little bit, they only have in some of the stores, they have one here. It's a big machine, it stays on the counter.
Okay, so I'm not familiar. I'll look at it. Okay. If it's something like that that never gets washed other things, so then you say
The only thing is they have a whisk, they have a metal whisk, they like mix the grinds in.
okay. So the metal whisk, you could ask them, they have disposable ones, right? So they have disposable like wooden stirrers that they can use also. But if in fact nothing ever gets near the same, again, we have to keep our minds away the traces over here. Again, I told you I'm ignoring Holstein and I'm ignoring flavors. Okay, were we to worry about those things, things would get a little more complicated. Okay.
Flavors, like for a frappuccino, they put on the ground.
Yes. Well,
There's no texture in the base.
the base doesn't have sugar. The base frappuccino you make from a base. That doesn't have sugar anymore.
Ice, they put coffee in it, they put base.
And some of the flavor teas that frappuccino used to have. We used to know the base.
Right.
For like a year or so, we thought they had a deal that they knew that was kosher. It's not anymore.
They actually see that they get caramel and there's no, again, you don't know what's going on in the store, but I can tell you that if you go on Starbucks site, there's a big fat starting on it.
Okay. And I do.
What about kids' temperature from the wand? They have that. Where
Right. So that's true. That's correct. It is possible to also avoid questions at the one by saying to them, I want to keep the not so hot, which, like you said, is designed for kids.
Yeah.
Okay, and they'll put a thermometer in it to make sure it's under 120 degrees.
This is all telling that you have that conversation with the barista to say, I want you to do it.
Okay, so the answer to that, Rega, it is that Starbucks particularly is very customer friendly. And if you come in with any Michigan and you say, I want a kid, they say, you don't look like a kid. But you say, we'll give you a kid one, we'll let you look at the label. They're very customer friendly. So they would go along with these Michigan. You say, I want my Americano in a paper cup.
And as far as the coffee, you're going with the assumption that the coffee has a hechsher.
The plain coffee.
Plain coffee.
Plain coffee, it doesn't need a hechsher.
So if you want to buy ground coffee from a house in a brewing house in Milwaukee,
That's okay. That's fine.
even though it doesn't have a hechsher.
Right, the plain coffee is fine.
Because again, the coffee production process
It's fine.
is fine.
Now, in Starbucks, they don't flavor the coffee bean.
Unflavored brewed coffee.
In Starbucks,
Unflavored ground coffee.
Flavored coffee, what they do is they make you a plain cup of coffee and squirt in the flavor. So you could look at that.
I'm not talking about coffee beans. I'm talking
They're fine.
roasted coffee beans
They're
from
fine.
any place, anywhere.
Not a question. That's fine.
Don't they use the same squirters at every place, or it's not standard? Because anytime I've ever checked, it always had
Almost all of them have coffee. But I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. So they'll have to show you the bottle. So you look at the bottle. I just done it. Can I see your bottle? They show you the bottle. That's good. Cold brew is worse because cold brew is. I take it back. I might be wrong about that. I don't know what's cold brew. I take it back. I don't know. Whatever it says on the website, go. You believe it. They know that. I don't know. Are you serious? What? Okay. Then ice cream is cold. Ice creams are really hot drinks. They're made extra concentrate. So it could be this. Okay, I don't remember. I don't remember. Okay, people.
Thank you very much.